Welcome back for a new 10 list. And I say 10 because this is not a definitive top 10 per se. So, with that said, I thought this time around look at 10 of my personal favorite games I have in my limited run collection. Just 10 of my personal favorites, not a top 10 like I said. Shows each of these for very specific reasons, a very distinctive thing about each, and I think is cool, or relatively rare or underappreciated game that I like to see occasionally actually get a physical release. So with that said, first up, game I thought I mentioned, one of my personal favorites, is Darkwood. As I've said before, I've talked very highly about this. This game, to me, is maybe, at least in my personal opinion, the best 2D horror game of all time. Given my personal opinion, I would dare say it's also my top 3 favorite indie horror games of all time. And there's definitely a few other really great horror indie games that I have played over time that eventually I may get around to maybe doing a top 5 or top 10 favorite indie horror games. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. But that said, yeah, the first of the 10 is Darkwood, which is a superb, great, creepy game and does its job very well. Next up, quickly go on to the more cheesy side of things with the next one I thought I'd mention, which is an awesome double pack, and that is Zombies Ate My Neighbors with also Ghoul Patrol, which I think it's cool. They include the classic 3D glass things in order to play Ghoul Patrol. Now, if you weren't really around or played a lot in the 16-bit era, Zombies Ate My Neighbors is truly an all-time classic of the Super Gen Sega Genesis, or Super Genesis, of the Super Nintendo Sega Genesis era, 16-bit war era. Zombies Ate My Neighbors arguably is probably the definitive zombie game of that time. It can be quite hard as you go higher in the game, same for Ghoul Patrol, but Zombies Ate My Neighbors definitely has a heavy nostalgia factor for me, which is why I was thrilled when I originally saw this getting a special limited run release. Because I think more people need to check out Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Also, on the very cheesy side of things, next is a little game you may or may not have heard that caused a lot of controversy when it originally came out in the 90s, called Night Trap. Now, today it is actually rated T for teen, and for good reason. This game, well, it's more like watching you control things from like a nerve center and you watch surveillance cameras, which is, of course, pre recorded footage and everything. It's more like a classic B rated horror film, and if anybody knows anything they've seen over the years on me talking about like some movies and things, is I love me some B-rated horror films. I mean, I love the classic Nightmare on Elm Street films, as well as many other different cheesy over-the-top films. Like the Leprechaun series is another cheesy one I really like. But with that said, yeah, Night Trap definitely gets that cheesy B-rated feel, over the topness of like things like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes or Revenge of the Killer Tomatoes. If you don't know what those films are, check them out. It's really dumb and stupid, but I love it for it. I just love me occasionally some good over the top cheese. I mean, the 90s was the decade of cheese. Next, thought I'd quickly share a little bit of some I really enjoy, and that is the special included with the deluxe version, but a special reproduction cartridge Saturn actual replica case with the remake of Panzer Dragoon, which is awesome. As a big avid defender of the Sega Saturn, this is awesome. Honestly, the fact they did actual pretty much almost perfect replica of the Saturn, even got the original Saturn logo and everything done. Though at the very tip top, you have the limited run thing on the front and the thing at the very bottom of the case. But still, I love this in all honesty. I think more people should appreciate some of these reproduction things they do. It's one of the things that helps set them apart. Also, on the reproduction front, one of my personal favorite things is the full reproduction, the original cartridge and everything, to the original Shantae, which was, of course, originally released on the Game Boy Color, and this is a complete replica of reproduction cartridge of the original Game Boy Color game. That was recently announced. Risky's Revenge, the second game, is going to be getting a special Game Boy Advance physical release, which you can bet you I'm going to be trying to get my hands on that as well. I love getting some reproduction stuff. Like, I also got like a reproduction in the background there. You see physical release of the Wily Wars on Sega Genesis cartridge. Also, I plan on picking up the reproduction Gargoyles Sega Genesis cartridge that's actually right now up for pre-order if you're at all interested. I do recommend checking it out. Next is arguably one of the coolest, I think, recent ones is the physical release for Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge, though this is a special version. Even got like the original style, like logo of the real original company, but with limited runs logo, and the fact that this also includes what looks like an actual VHS tape. It's cardboard with the actual game inside, but still, as somebody who grew up in the 90s and stuff, like, this to me is just pure awesome. An actual, like, perfect looking replica cardboard box of the actual VHS tape. That is pretty cool. I love that. Stuff like that. Also, quickly mention, getting towards the end, arguably one of my favorite indie dev or individuals outside of Toby Fox is obviously Pope, or rather Lucas Pope, which is responsible for Papers, Please, which, by the way, this is the only physical version on any sort of gaming platform that was ever made or released. So yeah, that makes this a very sought after game, needless to say. And on top of it being Vita, yeah, Papers, Please is a really awesome, cool game I think more people need to check out. Along with the other one, the other Lucas Pope game, which is Return of the Obra Dinn, which is an awesome looking, like, investigating style game. It's based around the whole thought of games revolving around government bureaucracy and everything. It's quite fascinating and unique and different, and I appreciate it for what it is. Definitely, Lucas Pope is a very distinctive style by him that I appreciate, and the fact he did these games by himself is even crazier. But they are both awesome games I highly recommend. Second to last is Volume 1, waiting for Volume 2 of course, the Neo Geo Pocket Color Collection. And you get 10 superb games. If you want, freeze the frame and you see. I mean, the fact it gives you SNK Gals Fighters, an all-female fine game, as well as Samurai Shodown 2, Kino Fighters R2, The Last Blade, the original classic, also Fatal Fury Contact, as well as the Match of the Millennium, SNK vs. Capcom, which is amazing. Metal Slug First Mission, Metal Slug Second Mission. Also, you have Dark Arms, which is a cool little horror-themed game. And, of course, Big Tournament Golf, which is one of the best handheld golf games ever, though I will argue Neo Geo Turf Masters is arguably, in my opinion, maybe just definitely the best 2D, well, golf game of all time, in my personal opinion. But this is a superb, great collection, and I just love it. I feel, really over the years, Neo Geo Pocket Color is a criminally underrated handheld that deserved way more love. Last is technically 5, but it's because it's the complete, which holds special for me, is finally having a complete version of Shantae. with all of them, which is awesome in all honesty. I mean, the fact you have the original Shantae classic, Risky's Revenge, and the really sought after one, which is absurdly expensive on all other platforms, Pirate's Curse, which is pretty much up there as just about my favorite, though. When push comes to shove, easily though my personal favorite goes to Half Genie Hero. In my opinion, is my favorite of the series. And then the most recent one, which is probably the weakest, unfortunately, Seven Sirens. Still a good platformer, but with that said, still overall, the Shantae series really over the years has become a huge cult following, which blows my mind. As originally the first game was more or less a flop. It's interesting as years have gone on, this game just gets bigger and bigger. And it is nice to say in like indie 2D platformers getting a lot more appreciation nowadays. I'm grateful honestly for indie as well as for Limited Run giving second chance at life for some of these franchises. Especially Shantae, Limited Run I feel is partially responsible for the humongous growth and popularity of Shantae throughout the years. But with that said, that is 10 of my personal favorites from Limited Run. With that said, I'll see y'all next time. Same YouTube time, same YouTube show. Stay safe out there.